What if the reality you see around you is actually a mirror of what's happening inside of your mind? Today, we explore why your self concept is the blueprint for your life and how to rewrite it. Today, I'm joined by Lisa Cerise, a transformational coach, spiritual guide who helps people reconnect with their inner truth and rewrite stories that are holding them back. Lisa's work blends deep emotional healing with powerful manifestation principles inspired by teachings like Neville, Goddard, Florence, Scovel, Shinn, and Lisa focuses on helping people shift their inner world, their beliefs, their assumptions, and the self-concept so that they can create real change in their external reality. Through her content and coaching, Lisa creates a safe, non-judgmental space for people to explore trauma, releasing limiting beliefs, and stepping into the version of themselves that they truly meant to be. Today we're diving into how your reality is shaped from within you and why it is time to take control of your mindset and how you can start shifting your life in a real grounded way. Lisa, welcome to the Champion Mindset Collective podcast.
Hi, thank you for having me here.
It's a great pleasure to have you here.
Yeah, I'm excited.
Likewise, a lot of what you're teaching, or what you've lived as well, and what you speak about aligns totally with what I believe, and what I know. So I'm really excited about this episode.
Yeah, same. It's great when you talk to someone and they just get it and you're like,
Yeah.
oh, that's exciting.
Now, Lisa, before we go into a whole lot of questions, I'd love for you to share your journey in life and how did you get here?
Oh, I feel like that would be an episode in itself. How did I get to this point where I am now? Really, I've always been quite a spiritual person. Loved tarot cards and loved stuff like that. But when I was younger, I saw like auras and things like that, and so it was always quite spiritual. And then it was probably when I had my injury, and I really went deep into more spiritual healing, more like shadow work and all this stuff, and really healing some deep trauma that I needed to work on, which I've always had a coach or a counselor or someone, but not quite hitting where I really needed to go. And so I think through me finding people online like YouTube and just, opening my mind to stuff that I hadn't really heard, it was another deeper level of spirituality. That's when I was like, whoa. So I feel like there's lots of spiritual awakenings on our journey, but there'll be one that is like the big
one. Yeah.
Yeah, there's lots of times where you go, hang on, there's more to life than just this. Or there's more, there's something more here. And then there's a big one where you're like, whoa, what am I doing? And everything around you, question where you are and what you're doing and, how did I get here sort of thing. So that happened probably about almost 2 years ago. And
Yeah.
I've gone deep into this journey of, the spiritual healing and then all the of assumptions and belief systems and actually being like, wow, we can actually change our reality. We can create the reality that we desire.
Yeah.
It just takes getting rid of those belief systems, which is the hardest part, really. It's a never-ending journey.
I totally relate with you because I've been through those shifts as well and those awakenings. And for me, I think the big awakening for me was back in 2024 as well. We had to sit through 12 weeks of shadow work and literally sitting in my discomfort for 12 weeks.
Yeah, I probably did the same. And every day turned into a shadow work day. I would
Yeah.
shadow work with every moment of the day, like every interaction. And I actually got too much into the shadow work that I was analyzing everything, and it got a bit too heavy.
Yeah. I think the key is when you get the knowing, you got to accept what happened and let it go and then acknowledge that it happened. Like in my life, there was a whole lot of abandonment and rejection and so on at an early age of 7. And so, to look back and go, okay, that was a situation that happened and I can't control it. It wasn't a bad thing. It's just what it was. And to accept it and let it go and to forgive yourself for holding on to all of this um, for so many years. Like for me, it was like 40 or 50 years of holding on to this stuff. And then also forgiving your parents, going, well, they put me in a bashroom boarding school, but it wasn't something that they did out of malicious. It was just something that happened, right? Because they split up. And as Dr. Gabor Mate talks about it, and says, well, the event that you went through was traumatic, right? But when you hold on to that event and the emotions of that event, then it's the emotions that you hold on to that are traumatic. It's the trauma. That's what the trauma is.
Yeah.
And the more you hold on to that emotion, and as we are emotional beings, and I think we tend to love holding on to things that are, the emotional things that are kind of like holding us back. And like you said, the limiting beliefs that we build up over time and so on. Yeah. So yeah, I totally resonate with that.
I was just going to add to that. I do believe that we come here choosing to learn certain experiences for our soul's growth, as much as we may be like, I never chose that. Yeah, that's another topic together. But yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. I
to
was
learn
listening to
how to grow through that so we can hopefully help others eventually.
yeah. I was listening to David Guillaume. He talks about the Kabbalah, and he talks about how a soul is, a soul is already here to go through the experience and to elevate. And the only way to do that is to connect with the Creator.
Yeah.
And whether for you it's the universe, and I believe the Creator actually uses the universe, but like the universe is between us and the creator, but we still have that ability to communicate with the creator through the universe. And
Yes.
we are effectively the universe and the image of the creator. So, but I also believe, and this is what Neville Goddard talks about, is that you have the ability to go back into your past and rewrite your current in the present moment, rewrite your future. Right. So, so
What's
yeah.
what's what story you want to start showing up and believing today, and who that is moving forward. If we're constantly taking our past into our future, then we're constantly like in the past,
Hmm.
So that like you can still acknowledge the feelings and everything that's happened and understand that's why we show up today a certain way, but we can also be like, okay, that happened, but I'm choosing a different story almost. Like
Yeah.
you can actually wake up and live each day a new day and a new person if you really, really want to. It's just a mindset shift and really being like, who actually do I want to be? And what, regardless of my past, how can I show up today as who I want my future to be?
Yeah. 100%. Yeah, I agree with you. Now, Lisa, your journey started with significant burnout and an injury. Tell us about that injury, what it was, and how did that physical breaking point lead you into going inward and actually asking the questions around the conditioning and everything that you grew up. We
Yeah, yeah. That's basically like, yeah, where the big awakening came from. So I was pushing through. I was in my sort of dream. I had my salon and I was living my dream. And so, but I was like working too hard and pushing and trying to, grow bigger and bigger and bigger. So eventually I could kind of step away, like as a boss CEO, but anyone who knows like big businesses, you don't really step away so much unless maybe it's massive. But yeah, so my dream was to eventually step away. So actually my dream wasn't really to keep working so hard like that. It was to eventually have it growing so I could then step away. But so I was not quite in alignment of where that was going. And so because I was not in alignment and I was working so hard, pushing my body, my mind, everything, I started getting this pain in my shoulder. Well, I had an injury and I had pain in my shoulder. And instead of being like, that's a sign to slow down, I was like, nope, we're just going to fix that problem. I'm going to get a cortisone shot and just, I've got to keep going. That was basically the universe telling me to sort of slow down. And I
mm,
ignored that sign and was like, I'm going to throw everything at it that will just fix it. And it was actually a sign for me to step back and like release some control from my business, but I just couldn't really let go. And so then that just turned into a huge, like, triple thing that happened. I got an infection and then I developed frozen shoulder. I woke up one day and my arm couldn't lift my arm. And the funny thing is, I actually intuitively knew it was coming because I was like, I'm going to take a week off because I just need a week to chill out. And the day of my time off, I woke up and I couldn't lift my shoulder. And then I was admitted to hospital and I had to get tests and stuff and then admitted to hospital and had an operation. And yeah, it was just, it was, and through this, I was also doing a Kundalini awakening at the same time, guided with this guru. And then I remember doing a big long meditation session and being like, this is not what I want to be doing. This is a nightmare. And I remember walking into my salon and like just crying and being like, I got to let it go.
So
Yeah.
what happened? You sold it? Or?
No, because if I had maybe let go at the time, maybe got someone to, maybe a business partner, someone to maybe buy it right then when it was still good, I basically kind of told all my clients to go elsewhere.
Wow.
And I had like someone working for me, so she did some of them, and then I had someone come flying up to help me out. But I guess still not being able to let go fully. And then I was like, I've built this brand, I'm not going to sell it for nothing.
Mm.
And then I just the lease was due to expire. And then basically I just closed it down and put everything to storage. And then you don't really have a business.
Mm. Yeah.
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 There's things I could have done so differently, but yeah, I wasn't in a good mindset. I was needing to heal. I was just sleeping. I probably, like for a month, I was just sleeping and healing, like doing
Mm.
healing work. But I don't think I was able to think of how to do things differently.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
how did that your perspective on hard work change after that experience?
Yeah, so I think I'll always be a hard worker, but what I've now come to realize is there is a alignment and a mental shift. Like hard work for me now is constantly showing up, even, I mean, if you're not having a great day, there are times when you've got to put yourself first, but it's more like showing up when things are scary, like and pushing yourself beyond the scary things. I feel like that's more hard work than just pushing your body beyond its,
Mm.
capable of. I mean, there is good to push yourself, but I think it's really learning. Like you get to know, especially when you've become more intuitive and spiritually tapped in and stuff, you get to feel what is pushing your body physically beyond where it needs to go versus what is just challenging and uncomfortable. I think there is a difference there, but I do feel like, yeah, just pushing and pushing and pushing, even if you're like, I need a day off.
Yeah. And it's important to listen to inner your inner voice and in your intuition, your gut feeling of like, hey, I need to chill out here and just have time to relax. And like I remember a year or so ago, I was like getting up at 5 in the morning and grinding it and working like 16 hours a day. And this year it's been like, no, I get up when I want to and I'm going to go for a walk and I'm just going to get my mindset right and I'm going to flush out all the stuff and then I'm going to tackle the day. And then there'll be days when I just want to do a few things. There'll be days when I want to crack into it and actually get things done. But yeah, it's and not having someone else telling you what to do
How?
and helps as well.
Yeah.
and you actually align to what you want in your life, what you desire, right? So it's important to do that. And yeah, like you said, you've got to listen to your body and your inner being as well, your inner sense of like, is this actually flowing? Are you in that flow state, or are you just you know
Yeah, and
grinding it?
'cause I've done the whole, like, Tony Robbins, like, yeah, like, this
Yeah,
list, done all the things that he suggests, and it's great for, like, a month, and then I just went crash. I do also feel like there is a little bit of an aspect of to what men can do and to what women can do is a little bit different. Personally, I feel like our cycles can get
yeah,
we've gotta work with that as well, that changes and stuff, and so I really do believe is constantly trying different methods and modalities or habits, constantly trying different ways and maybe even different like advice out there, but always changing it and making sure that like if it isn't working and you are listening, if your body is like getting tired, fatigued, or you're feeling like you need a change up, then knowing that and constantly pushing through can also be where you can lead to burnout. I know I used to throw a lot of back in the day, like the new shiniest thing, or like I'll just do this course, or I'll just like throw more like money or this or that at things. Just be constantly like rather than being like maybe I need to stop.
subtracting.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and maybe I can actually put it out there and let the universe show me and guide me to where I need to be going. Because I
yeah,
feel like when we're constantly like doing more courses or doing the new latest like fad or whatever, it's not always going, we kind of can be going against what the universe is naturally going to help us out with anyway. If we're in an alignment where we're meant to be going. And if we're not, then maybe it will be a little bit difficult and a bit more hard because we just need to shift a little bit. It doesn't mean we're not going to go there. We might just need to experience this little lesson first before we
yeah.
get. So,
Yeah, and then there are times when it's good to take those courses and do things,
yes, definitely.
but there's plenty of people out there selling their things, and you don't have to go after those shinier objects.
Yeah, I think choosing what feels right, there's a lot that's good out there and I've done so many, but I realize when you're just kind of not really like what is your intention and is it aligned with where you're going, you know?
Yeah, and what I've found is that when you sometimes those things will pop up, not because you have to do the course, but actually it's just guiding you and giving you some information.
Yes.
And so, like for like to give you an example, I did the Tony Robbins AI Advantage
Yes, yeah.
over last weekend. And of course, I was part of we talked about this just before this, is that I went into this school, um, online school portal where basically you communicate and do stuff. And then I was like, okay, well, hang on, I want to do something like this, but how can I do this? And I then went to AI and said, I want to build this into my own ecosystem. How can I do this? And it gave me the brief. Within a couple of hours, I built it. Right.
That's
And I
so
was
good.
like, okay, so the universe just gave me something, an opportunity. And so what I find is that when people come to you, often we'll push them away or some unsubscribe. But what I tend to do is go, what is the universe trying to tell me here? What can I learn from the situation, and
Yes.
what can
And
I apply?
actually,
Yeah.
yeah, to add to that, I I have this like aversion to real salesy type scripts, and I'm like, "Ugh, another one of those." Bleh. I realized realized why I keep being shown them is because it's actually a part of myself that I almost need to kind of embody, and I really
Yeah.
don't do. But it's like trying to get somewhere but I feel like there must be a different way to do it, right? Like, they can't just
Yeah.
be the same. I don't know, I'm like, if I end up figuring out something in this life, maybe it's how to do a sales script that's not like everyone other.
Yeah. Well, the interesting thing is that you're really good at getting on TikTok and
Yeah.
Instagram and doing the reels and stuff, right? And and maybe at one point you weren't so confident,
Yes.
but you had to go through that.
Maybe I'll
And
get okay
yeah,
with.
yeah. And but the thing is, I'm finding that like I mean, doing this podcast is is easy, but actually then talking for 30 seconds about something specific. And so I actually went to ChatGPT the other day and I said, look, why am I actually being like this? Can you help me identify why I'm doing this? And it actually started coaching me and saying, look, let's just take this a bit by bit and let's just break it down into small things. And I was like, I was going, yeah, I want to be like yourself because I think you're brave to just get out there and put your reels up there. So, yeah, I would say that you're influencing me in some shape or form. So there you go.
I've started just what I'll do is I'll post something and then I'm like, and then I'll just go off. Like, I
Yeah,
just won't look at it for like a day or so. I'm like, and then I'm just like, but I'm like, I've stopped kind of caring, I guess. And it's
yeah.
like, but I do want to get better at the sales side of like that actually, because it's to actually close or, get.
You never know. There may be opportunities to work together and do that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
And so another thing that I've also learned is the things that we find either we don't like in others or we're like, ugh, like when we see that, it's actually a part of us that we're not wanting to like acknowledge, So we all have, and something in someone you might actually hate about them. It's like that is a part of yourself that you don't want it to ever come out or something. That's
mm,
something I've also
yeah,
learned.
yeah. Yeah. Now, Lisa, you talk about the inherited beliefs and survival patterns. For someone listening who feels stuck today, how can they start to recognize which parts of their life are based on their own truth versus someone else's conditioning?
It's quite interesting with, really working with beliefs and especially all the Neville Goddard and Florence that I've been listening to and so many others as well. Because we come in with a set of beliefs from our family, ancestors, culture, where we are, and it's like that's our truth, and then someone somewhere else believes the complete opposite, and then that's their truth. And it's like both people are right. And what you believe, you see. And so that's a belief, essentially, as whatever you've been told or you've grown up with, or it is a belief. And so then you're like, okay, I want to not believe that anymore. And that's really where you're unwiring, especially if you've got people around you that are constantly telling you the same beliefs and you're like, I don't want to believe that anymore. That's not my truth anymore. And so that is really where the work is.
Mm,
Me myself, I've sometimes had to just change the environment or, like change what I listen to or actually just stand up and be like, no, I don't believe that anymore. Like I'm not
yeah,
taking on that, which is really that journey of you're speaking your truth, because
yeah.
I like to be a bit of like a people pleaser. So like, I don't want to be like, no, I don't believe that. But yeah, so that really feeling stuck that's when we can sort of be like, well, what do I want to change in my life? And then that's when I go on and that's where I've gone onto YouTube and I then research people who have changed that particular thing. Like what do they do? Like how do they act? How do they shift it? Especially when you're constantly being thrown the same beliefs and you're trying to work through those. So surrounding yourself with people that have done the work and have uh changed those beliefs or don't even have those beliefs. Yeah.
And why do we find it so hard to spot these patterns in ourselves?
I guess it's like that's why I guess that's like finding or knowing what your shadow is, it's just around you and it's like everything's being mirrored to us. We are essentially mirrors of our own selves. Um, Sometimes it's hard to see what we can't see, well, the other side if we're just mirroring ourselves essentially. So yeah, I just feel like when you like your environment and what's around you and when you're just trying to see a different way or a different perspective, sometimes you've got to go out of the box to see it, or you've got to see a different perspective, or that's why I feel like people who travel lots, they
Yeah,
a bit more open-minded because you're seeing the way different people live and different beliefs and all of that. So,
yeah, yeah.
yeah.
And it's there's Dr. Ethan Cross talks about this because he wrote a book called The Chatter, and he talks about this and other people have talked. Dr. Joe Spencer, Sadhguru, all talk about it. Like when you zoom out above yourself and start observing what is happening in your life, then that's when you get to sort of see the patterns appearing. I mean, journaling is a good way of doing that. Is or becoming more conscious and being able to see that you're doing something on a regular basis is
Yeah.
is a way of doing that. Now, what do you believe is the first step in identifying a belief that that?
I feel like the language, like how we speak is probably the biggest thing is like what are we actually saying? Like if we're like, I can't, or that's too hard, or like I don't have enough or something, it's like I do feel like that is the first point of change, which language is so automatic, it's like we just wake up and, like I'd wake up and be like, oh, stupid, blah, blah, and like, criticizing myself before I even walked out the door. And it's like, that's just mirroring parents or, like whatever. It's not like they ever said that to me, but it's like I'm now having to watch what I say around my daughter because then we believe what we say. So it's like whatever we're saying, whatever we're consuming, whatever we're got around us is what we are believing. So I feel like the
Mm,
language is the hugest thing, is how we speak to ourselves and what we're actually essentially putting out what we believe when we speak. Um,
yeah,
so
yeah,
if like, "Oh, it's a Monday, Mondays always suck or whatever. It's like that's you're creating that reality, you know?
mm, mm,
It's like we shift that by how we speak to ourselves and how we like even the thoughts. I mean, you can't like you can notice the thoughts, but be like, hang on, that's a belief speaking to me. That's not actually me or my truth. And quite often it starts with the thoughts. So if we can catch them and be like, can I change that thought or observe it? Like, where is that coming from? That's generally where the belief is
yeah, yeah.
underlying.
Yeah, and yeah, you're absolutely right. And then there's also that part where we've got to die to ourselves, to the parts of ourselves that are no longer serving us or no longer aligned to who we are, right? And people say this is the way I am, and this is the way it is. Yeah, that's if you believe that that's the way you are, then you've got that this mindset that nothing can ever change.
Yes.
And the thing is, you've got to die to your current self and be able to change to become a different version of yourself. And so, yeah, having that awareness, I think, is important to be able to then take the right steps to move forward through change. And if nothing changes in our lives, then nothing changes,
Yes, exactly.
right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
because I've been diagnosed with like dyslexia and ADHD, and even though that's like they're a diagnosis, that's great. I do try and like I do still use my ADHD as like a excuse and stuff, but I do try and not be like that is my label and that is me because it's like it's an understanding of how my brain may work, but it's also like
yeah.
it's not
Well,
who I am as a person, you know?
no, and that's a label that society gives us.
Yes, exactly.
That's when labels are usually given when people don't really understand the
Yeah.
person, right?
Yes.
And if you listen to Simon Sinek about the ADHD, because he's been diagnosed with ADHD. I've been told I've been I've got ADHD, and I'm like, well,
Well, we've all got a little bit of past something in us.
I'm like, well, that's my superpower. So there we
Yeah,
go.
exactly.
Right? So it makes me different and it makes me unique. Um, and if someone wants to label me and box me into something, well, I don't really want to be there. So, so as an individual, you have every right to not believe that, right? Because your thought is going to create that belief.
Yes, exactly.
So, as you said,
Especially with the dyslexia, and now I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm struggling because of the dyslexia. I'm like, no, I'm probably just struggling. Like, there's something else, but that
exactly.
it's yeah, it's kind of. I try not use it as a cop out, but I sometimes it's an easy way to be like, oh,
And it may just mean that, hey, you've got to break something down into smaller
mm,
chunks to be able to
yeah,
understand it rather than like, for example, when I sent you the script for this episode, you were going, whoa, overwhelmed.
that's too many words.
Yeah, but if you actually then broke it down each question and went, hey, does this resonate with what I'm going to talk
Yeah.
about? Then, yeah. So, yeah. Now, the core part of your work involves law of assumption, which comes from Neville Goddard,
Yes.
and the idea that the reality is shaped by our self concept. Could you explain what actually it looks like in daily life? It's all right.
This is quite a interesting uh concept that I've been really into. I'm more like I love Florence and Neville's the same, but I like the female speaking is just because I listen to things on audiobook because lots of reading is like, oh, I struggle with reading a lot of information with their work. And what I've really started to recognize is we can create our own reality and like law of assumption you can which is sometimes hard when you're putting stuff out there that hasn't happened, but then you start believing it. But what you can just do is start embodying what you want to see. Or if you're seeing stuff that you don't want to see, that's kind of showing you where you're in alignment. And if, we can put out all the stuff that we want to happen, law of assumption, write all these affirmations and be like, yay, and feel them and stuff like that. And if we're not actually seeing it, that comes down to like a belief and where we're maybe not quite in alignment, maybe we're not feeling deserving, and there might be something else that is stopping that. But I just love their sort of work with really feeling how you want your life to be and feeling you can even I've done this even with like because we're essentially creating our own reality, and so if we're thinking that person's having a bad day, we're actually assuming that and creating that in our own mind. So then I will go and I will kind of like map out how I want the day or whatever to go. And I see everyone as being happy and having their own good time or the being in their own happy space. And the more I can see that, the more I actually experience that. And then if things start shifting, it's because I've kind of shifted my own mindset. And I'm not saying it's always like everything's always amazing, but I realize I can actually tap in with if I'm feeling negativity around people or something, I'm like, "Oh, it's actually because I'm feeling there's something I'm not feeling secure about, or there's actually my own belief or something else going on. So then I'm like, this is actually me that needs
Mm,
to shift
mm,
how I'm perceiving and seeing everything. And then when I can be like, actually, I'm okay, things are all good. And I go through all this stuff, like my basic needs, everything's okay. Like, and then I'm like, and then I feel peace and then I see more peace. It's kind of hard to explain, but that's all I can
yeah.
think of.
A good book that I read, The Power of Now by Eckhart
Yes.
Tolle. He talks about we only ever have the present moment, right? And we tend to fast forward and go into the future and start getting into overwhelm and anxiety.
Yeah, yeah.
And then you've got the past stuff. But if you focus on just what's happening today, and then actually there's no issues, there's no
Yeah.
problems.
In the right
And
moment.
then
Yeah.
yeah, and then every negative thought, is just a cloud passing by,
Mm.
right? So you just say, "Oh, there's another silly thought. Oh, here's another silly thought," and then you have the opportunity to convert that to a positive thought. Now, if you're familiar with Abraham Hicks and Esther Hicks, she's got this framework called the segment intending, and that's where you in the morning, you wake up and you're in that meditative state, the alpha brainwaves, and what you do is you start to really start putting mapping your day out and saying, "Here's all the things that I want to happen today," and actually you're actually pre-planning your day ahead
Yeah.
into segments, right?
Yeah.
And I've done this, and literally things have happened within my life just by within that day, and exactly how I planned it has actually happened. It's almost like, and you could write it down, or you could just speak it out, or you could just in your mind, but that visualization, but also speaking, because the power of our words have so much power. When we speak something out, we're actually sowing that seed
Yeah.
into
Okay.
the yeah, exactly. And yeah, we're putting it out there, and then it's the matter of, are you aligned to the frequency of
Yes.
right,
Yeah.
of what's out there, because it already exists. It's just that you haven't got it, because as I was walking this morning, and Abraham Hicks, I was listening to a video on YouTube, and she said, you might be tuned into 6:03 a.m., but what you're looking for, what you're wanting, is at 93 FM. Then of course there's no alignment. So you've got to tune yourself to the right frequency to be able to attract the things that to you.
Yes.
And so the segment intending is a good way of doing that. But also I found in my personal life is that staying present and not thinking about the future too much, and think is also helps as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Anytime that I'm having a bit of like a anxious day, moment, whatever, I know that I'm just thinking too much of the future, where I want to be going, or what, the next thing that needs to happen. And so, because we're constantly manifesting like every second, which can sometimes, then you're like, oh, I don't want to have these negative thoughts and manifest them. So sometimes I'll just be like, okay, I'm driving my car, and I'm like, be present driving my car, and I just imagine getting to where I'm going, like happy and safe and at peace, and it's like, and it's almost like just imagining the next step going really well. And it's like, that's all I have to worry, like, not worry, but like, that's what I can put my focus towards, and
Yeah,
not like this whole big plan where that's where the overwhelm and the anxiety can creep in. So it's like
yeah,
just each step of the day, the next thing is, and you can just imagine it in your head and how it goes really smoothly, and then just be in the present with each thing that you're doing.
yeah, 100%. And we're shifting identities every second, every minute,
Yes.
every hour. And so if you're seeing something appearing over and over again, which is not what you want, then you may need to shift to a different identity. But absolutely what you said is, you only got to, you what happens in the future is none of our business.
Yes.
It's the
Yeah.
universe's business.
Yeah.
All we've got to worry about is that
Let it go and
what's
go.
exactly, let it go, be in the flow state, and let things come to you. Don't chase things. And like when you chase a girl, or when I chase a girl, she runs the other way.
Yeah.
If I chase money, it runs the other way.
It's like a magnet, because you're like, you're chasing and it's going, but when you flip around, it
Exactly.
comes to
Yeah.
you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, and the other thing I was going to say was, yeah, literally just worry about what the next step is. And it's interesting. I love what Steve Harvey says, that you were given a vision, and other people may not understand where you are at, or what your actions and so on. But that vision was only given to you. It
Yes.
wasn't given to anyone else.
Yes.
So, which is why people don't understand, and people go, "Oh, you can't do that," or "You're not going to be able to do that." It's like, well, hang on, how do you even know?
No,
So
and they're just putting their beliefs onto you. And so if we keep listening to those beliefs, then we essentially will believe that we can't do it. So it's
yeah,
like,
exactly.
if it's something you really feel like you can do, then I feel like just follow the people that have done it, or that the ones that are more in alignment, and be like, it can be done. I've just
Yeah,
got to start believing in myself and
yeah.
believing.
Now, for the how does a self concept differ from having high self esteem?
High self esteem is really putting the work into yourself and believing yourself. But we can also have like an ego, which we can be like, yeah, like we're tooting our own horn. But we're not always self-aware of how that is coming across us. I don't think having an ego is a bad thing. I think it's good to be self-reflective and always just checking in with like, are you in alignment? I also do feel like, if you're always going to be the one that roots for yourself, goes for yourself. And so it's really good to put that work into believing in yourself and and actually backing yourself to a degree where you can, I guess, see along the line, like, what is your intention as well. Sometimes we do things because we're like, oh, I just want recognition and this and that, and I want to feel special. I feel like that's doing it from a lack mentality. Like if you're really coming in and being like, I want to do this because I believe it will help people, or like you've got a strong why, and your strong why is the reason, rather than wanting that recognition, or that that maybe there's a part of you that wants to be seen and heard, and we really need to see and hear ourselves first. And
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
so
Absolutely. Yeah. Now you're focusing on heavily on deep emotional healing alongside with mindset work. Why is it so important to address our emotional history before we try to manifest a new future?
because if there's like traumas and stuff like that, that is essentially we haven't done the work with, I do feel like that trauma can come out into our manifestations, or we can, we'll almost be constantly confronted with stuff that will trigger the trauma,
Hmm.
because we haven't been able to understand it or even realize what the triggers may be. So I do feel like it's good to go and do the trauma work and like work out where it's come from. I mean, obviously trauma is quite an intense subject. It's not something, if someone has got quite a traumatized background, I recommend them always seeing a psychiatrist or someone who specializes on that. But I do feel like it's good to get that work, and work on the triggers, work on the deep root of the trauma. And then once you can come to peace with it, it's really just coming to peace with it. And then so then you can manifest, rather maybe from, sometimes because of a trauma we want to manifest something because we don't ever want to experience that again. So it's like just seeing where that manifestation or what you're wanting is coming from, and making sure it's not just like the opposite of the trauma or something like that, like coming to
Mm,
peace with what's happened. Yeah, sometimes we can manifest things almost from like a lack mentality, and it's like we're wanting to come from like a space of like love and compassion, and just seeing compassion as well.
yeah. Yeah. And how do you balance the positive thinking with acknowledging the real trauma or the pain?
Yeah, because I know there's toxic positivity, which is quite a big thing, and sometimes I'll get frustrated at some people when I'm like, oh, you're not like just putting like all the positives on top. But then I also can do that, just like to have a positive sandwich over the top of anything. And it's like, oh no, it'll be fine. But I do feel like it's the most important thing is really feeling our feelings and acknowledging the feeling. And then just being like, that's okay to feel that. And that's when
Mm,
I like journaling or like having a support person to talk to, where you can like actually release, because that's an emotion, which is like energy emotion. So it's got to go somewhere. And then once we've like released it, then you can also like see what you learn from each experience. So I'm all into like, I'm feeling this, like what is coming up and why am I feeling that right now? And just working on the what I'm learning, like everything is a lesson and a learning. And so then when you can see what you're learning, then you can actually come with like a gratitude from it. You're like, oh, thank you for this experience because it taught me this. And
Yeah.
so that's when you can turn it into more of a positive.
And what does a safe place look like for transformation for you?
I feel like a safe space is where you can really be vulnerable and you've got someone who understands, who really deeply understands. Like they don't have to have the same traumas or whatever as you, but they have a like a deep understanding and compassion, and it's almost like I feel like they don't have the judgment there. It's just like you can just be your messy human and express what you need to. And then through that space, we quite often talk through our own trauma and then we kind of find the solutions ourselves by just being able to let it all out and feel safe and vulnerable and not feel judged. Because if we feel judged, then we'll hold back because you're like, oh, this person doesn't really understand. So,
Mm,
yeah, I
mm.
do feel like it's just someone who you feel like you can be your absolute vulnerable self and you don't feel like you'll be judged, you know?
Yeah, that's so important to have someone that you can actually share with and not feel like you're going to be judged.
But often through that process, just holding space and being able to open up fully, you actually kind of answer your own questions eventually, or you get it all out and you're like, oh, actually, I can see a
And I think that's the difference between counseling and coaching. As a coaching, you're actually asking them questions to open their perspective
yes,
to a different way of answering that question. Because if you're used to answering a question a certain way, then you're always going to answer it that way. But
yes,
when someone prompts you to look at it from a different perspective, then all of a sudden you've got a different view of
yeah.
what that is. Now, the ideal person that you work with and you help, often someone who knows that there is more for them but feels like they're held back by overthinking and doubt. What is one practical shift that they can make today to start reclaiming their power?
Leave just like literally just saying I am enough is like the first, if you can say that to yourself in the mirror, like straight away, just start saying that. I feel like quite often, if you're not feeling like that, that will feel really hard to say, and that just start believing you are enough and just know that if you are feeling like you are meant for more or there is just something not quite right, the more you can actually put that inner work into yourself, believe you are enough, believe the answers are going to come, and just start actually, yeah, really just putting yourself first in a
Mm,
way that some people might think it's selfish, but like actually loving and believing in ourselves, we then start to come up with ideas and solutions
yeah,
and just being around other people that are supportive and
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
you do well.
What is a common trap that people fall into when they first start this work?
Gosh, I feel like there's a lot of shame and sort of like we can be like, oh, I shouldn't have done this, or like there's you kind of reflect back on your life and you're like, become lots of shame comes up, things that could have been done differently. But I do believe is like it doesn't really matter. It's who are you today and how are you moving forward. You
Yeah,
know?
and you're pulling yourself back into that
Yeah.
different frequency of the
Yes.
vibrational frequency,
Yeah.
which is quite a low frequency, right? So
Yeah.
you want to be up there with, if you love what you do, you
Yeah.
love who you are,
Enjoy
love
it.
yourself, you love, yeah, exactly. So if we make a conscious effort to, or conscious choice to be, wouldn't say effort, but conscious choice to always aim to be in a loving way towards yourself rather than guilt and shame and
Yes.
stuff. Then yeah. And how can someone move from just studying these ideas to actually living them?
Well, something that just came to my mind as you were just speaking, I wanted to just tap onto when, like, if you're saying I am enough, like if you're actually going, but I don't feel this, then I would be like, what would it feel like to be enough? And if we're like, oh, money, this, that, like these are all external things that like we actually need to think of like, but what about me? What do I need to do to be enough? Because
Yeah.
those are all external factors.
Yeah. And this is precisely, I was listening to Abraham Hicks this morning, and the conversation was around the universe doesn't understand your words.
Yes.
Words
Yeah.
words are man-made words.
Yeah.
Universe understands your emotions.
Yes. Your
Yeah.
feelings.
Your
Yeah.
feelings, and those
Yeah.
emotions and feelings create the energy, and the energy is what creates a vibration that creates, right, the energy and motion, which creates the. So often because we're so all about what we speak and what we say, it's almost like sometimes we've just got to shut up and actually
Yes. And
and
feel. We're gonna
feel.
feel through
Yeah,
life. Yeah.
yeah.
Right. Which
And there
can
is
be
that,
uncomfortable.
yeah, and there is that saying that you got to feel it to heal it, right?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
And
That's like,
that,
oh, I feel it. But then,
yeah, and for me, the journey was going through that, like back in over the last 11 years, many times I've had to sit in my discomfort for days, weeks, and feel exactly what was going on. But
mm,
then come to the realization that actually everything that was happening for me was it was a mirror, it was a projection, and it was mirroring back to me. So
mm,
what do I have to start changing in my life now so that I'm not projecting that stuff out and it's mirroring back to me? And until I came to the realization and the awareness of it, I would have been kept doing the same thing. And like I said earlier, it's taken me 40, 50 years to get to this point where I'm actually, you know, but yeah, I think the first thing is be aware and come to the realization. I don't know if you've ever heard of the adult growth model.
ooh, I'm not
Mm.
sure.
So the way we grow into adults is that we go through when we are babies, we are reliant. We're reliant on our parents because we can't change our nappies, we can't feed ourselves, so we're just literally a big giant head with a body and we can't do anything, right?
I believed that, but it has been. But anyway, yeah.
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 And so each of these four steps, there is actually a functional side and a dysfunctional side. So,
Mm.
but as an adult, if you're reliant on other people, then that's dysfunctional, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, and then you get to the rebellion stage in your teenage years where you start to rebel because your brain is completely going through a reforming and it's changing.
Sometimes it never changes, but
Yep. Yeah. Sometimes you're stuck there. But
yeah.
then again, in the adult life, if you're rebellious, then you basically are dysfunctional, right?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Then you get to the result stage in life which for me was like 11 years ago, where it's like, or along that timeline, where it's like, okay, why do I keep getting these results? And as Einstein said, if you keep doing the same thing, you get the same result, right? And expecting something different is a sign of insanity. So again, when you get those results, if your functional side is that you'll actually go, okay, what can I do with this? Whereas the rebellious side, the dysfunctional side will be completely oblivious to it and they don't really look at it. The last step is the realization. Then you come to the realization that, hey, these being reliant, being rebellious, and not actually paying attention to the results I'm getting, you know, is is this is what's happening. And so that's when you start to take action in your life. And you can think about things, you can feel things, which is great, but you've also got to take that inspired action in your life to be able to
Yeah.
move forward. So yeah. So now, Lisa, if people have been listening to this episode and they've been resonating with what you've been sharing, how can they get in touch with you? What have you got on offer that people can get help from you?
So on my website, which is lisacerise.com, I do have a link on there where people can book a discovery call if they resonate with what I'm speaking about and they feel like, yeah, they feel called to. Otherwise, you can just search me up on YouTube. This might be linked to my YouTube. I'm not sure, but
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
I've got lots of videos on there. So I guess yeah, there's probably a bit too many for people to try and watch. But I guess I think it's good to get a feel and just be like, is this person yeah, do they feel aligned, you know? And generally you'll know. Uh, but it's really just, starting to look outside and see if things resonate and if something wakes up. On my website, I'm all about remember who you are because I do
Yeah,
believe our
we are
souls,
here. We're remembering. We're
we had to forget everything and now we just, and that kind of that lost feeling is the
yeah,
start of remembrance.
yeah, and we're here to experience. We're here. Our souls here to experience and remember who we are. So we are. Now, you will be added as a collaborator to
Oh
the
yeah,
video.
cool.
The videos, all of your information will be available on a page on
Oh
the
yeah.
Champion Mindset Collective podcast. There'll be an article written from this episode as well, and there'll be a practical guide that people can download and actually be able to take and be able to start applying in their life. And it'll have all the information that you spoke about on there. And on your episode page, you'll have all your links so that people can go and visit as well. Yeah, and also, I'd like to uh, do some stuff with you, collaborate with you,
Yes,
do
definitely.
and build some courses and stuff that we can
Yeah,
do
I
on the
love
academy.
a shadow work course. I actually started doing a shadow work, my own little, like, I've got a PDF which I could actually link.
Yeah,
It's a very basic one,
yeah,
but that's something I'm quite passionate about. And because I've done the heavy shadow work, and I feel like it could be a little bit lighter, and that it can be, if you can turn it into a bit more of an enjoyable, fun journey rather than it being quite deep and uncomfortable. We're still feeling everything, but
yeah,
you not getting
100%.
stuck there like I did.
Yeah, and I will be soon launching. So if you're watching this, I'll be soon launching the Champion Academy, which is going to be a central place within the Champion Mindset Collective podcast website, and you'll be able to join the community there. You'll be able to connect with others. You'll be able to, based on what you're going through in your life, you'll get suggested which episodes will help you. So you can go and listen to particular episodes that will help you. You can go actually right now onto the Champion Mindset Collective website, and you can talk to the champion coach, and it will actually and tell it what you're going through, and it will suggest to you episodes that you can listen to help you. So it's there to kind of get context and then be able to help you through that. There's so much content on the website. Please go and have a look, and it's all free for a limited time. So go fill your boots. Now, Lisa, we are at the quick fire questions. So we've got 6 really quick fire questions, which is you can answer in a short sentence or a single word. And the first question for you is, how do you define success, and has that definition evolved for you over time?
Yeah, definitely it's evolved. I feel like success is just being proud about who you are showing up as each day. And if you're constantly working on evolving no matter what, it's not how much money is in the bank.
No, it's who you're becoming rather than
Yeah, who you
what.
are as a person, who you show up as. And
Yeah. Who's been your greatest inspiration and why?
To be honest, I love Abraham Hicks. Like I do, I would love to channel like them because channeling is something that I want to get into. Obviously, they're pretty massive, but yeah, definitely. I love
Yeah,
her quirkiness. Just
yeah.
yeah,
She's pretty cool.
yeah,
Bashar also?
yeah. Bashar as well.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. Both
yeah,
of those. Yeah.
yeah. Awesome. What is something that you believe that others may disagree with?
That we create our own reality. It's quite a yeah, like everything we're seeing, like we're creating. And yeah, some people are like, no, that's not yeah, that
If
is
you could if you could go back and give young Lisa some advice, what would it be? You're still young,
goodness.
by the way. You're still young, by the way.
Yeah, she
But
was
your
so
younger self.
awesome. Like she had so much stamina and she was just badass. I would love to go back and have more of that energy, but with the wisdom I have today. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And what is one message that you'd like to share with the world?
Just be a loving, compassionate person no matter what, and if you don't like the way someone is around you. I just feel like protect your peace. Choose peace over fighting.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
And the last question for you is, what does it mean to be a champion and have a champion mindset?
Just to be showing up and being, trying to be a good person and just trying to do your best and having that positive mindset where you can.
Thank you so much, Lisa. It's been amazing chatting with you today.
Yeah, it's been
And
great. Thank you for having me on.
yeah, it's a pleasure. And we'll to get you back for some more.
Yeah.
And
Your website is awesome as well.
oh, thank you. Thank you. And, it's a work in progress. And yeah, and would love to do some like a series, like a series of episodes with you as well.
Yes, would love that.
Yeah. And so, yes, it's a pleasure to dive deep into the inner world with you. And this episode, if someone's listening to this and this episode has sparked something in you, I encourage you to take one small step today. Check in with yourself and on your own self concept. And you can find more about Lisa's work in the show notes and also on the episode page that will be on the Champion Mindset Collective website. Don't forget to subscribe. And I'd really encourage you, please share this episode with someone who really needs to hear this because you can change their life. The reason why the Champion Mindset Collective was created is because we can change our own lives ourselves, but together we can change the world. And people say, oh, well, how can I change the world? Well, you can, because when you show up, the way you act, the way you feel, the way you know, take action towards things, it inspires other people, right? So,
Yeah.
yeah, 2.5 years ago, I could have sat here and not taken the step to actually start this podcast. And now I'm talking to people all around the world. And, this is uh, done 200 and something episodes. I just love this. So I encourage you to share this with someone who needs to hear this. And remember that growth starts from within. It's not an external thing. It's everything that happens in your life is from what happens within yourself and what you believe about yourself. Back yourself, believe yourself. Don't listen to people that say you can't do something because they don't know. You know your limits. And we'll see you in the next episode. And lastly, I just want to say you are loved, you are worthy, champion your life, champion your greatness, and have an amazing day.
Hard.